Good morning, PT on Ice. Happy Monday, February the 11th, 2019. My name is Mike Eisenhart. I am the lead faculty for the APHPT division of courses, which includes the intro course, the total lifestyle therapist course, precision prevention course, and of course the CERT course. So today is Monday, which means that you are stacked up with me again, going to get the watch ready to go here and get started because we got plenty to cover in a short amount of time. Kick off the day, kick off the week with a little bit of pop. So let's get started. All right. So today is Monday. It is 8:30 on the dot. So it's time to talk a bit about all things population health, all things kind of prevention, health promotion, and really how we sort of do that. That's always the theme here on Mondays. And so just to give some brief announcements, things that I think are important. First and foremost, if you're watching this live or you're seeing this on Facebook, you see that the mug has made its way back. That I feel like is a lost thing here on the ICE podcast on the Daily Show. I feel like less and less people have been using the mug, and I remember the early days, kind of nostalgia when most everybody was sitting behind the desk here with a cup of coffee. So thought I would just kind of throw that back a little bit and just tip my cap to the good old days. There's a little something there, but the second part is to just let you know that there are some announcements, things that are coming down the pike. Specifically as it relates to APHPT and some of the course offerings. I want to make sure that I get that sort of out of the way early so that people know. Because those dates are coming up, and if these are things that interest you, you should go ahead and get on board and get that going. The first is that the Total Lifestyle Therapist and Precision Prevention courses are both starting up on the 25th of this month. Those are level 2 courses. Those are for people who have completed the intro or in sort of version 1 completed the CERT course. They are different than the CERT course entirely. One of the things that we found over the course of teaching the CERT course for the first year and a half, 2 years, was that it really got into a lot of different areas, and there wasn't possibly enough time to cover them all at the level of depth that we wanted to. So whereas we touched on population dynamics, I really wanted to dive deep into that. And unfortunately something has to give, right? So you can't go deep into lifestyle if you want to touch on population dynamics. You just don't have the time. And you can't go deep into behavior change if you want to touch on lifestyle because you just don't have the time. And so we wound up sort of covering a lot of ground, but not really getting the depth that we wanted. So as you may have known or may have heard, we developed these level 2 courses with the idea of doing an intro and then really giving 3 distinct pathways that hopefully interconnect at some point, but give somebody a nice option. So Total Lifestyle Therapist is designed really to get into behavior change. It's really designed to help somebody who needs to make that change, and it's heavy on psychology and heavy on change research and kind of the skills. It's kind of a skill building course where you're sitting with a person and really helping them walk through the process of change. So we hear things like motivational interviewing thrown out a lot. We hear things like various techniques kind of thrown out a lot. The goal here is to get good at them. So just like we would get good with our hands or get good with any other sort of technical type thing that we do, this takes practice, it takes effort. That's that course, February 25th. The second course is with Dr. Ali Hartman and Precision Prevention, and that's really what do you do in the clinic starting now. If you're a person who knows you want to go down this road and you're in a clinical setting, you may not be ready to tackle a population or take on an employer. How can you get started now? And specifically, how can you get started with an eye toward keeping healthy people healthy? How can you work in your community with other resources, and how can you really begin to interpret what's going on? And then, of course, the third level 2 course is the CERT course, which is with me, and that's really looking a little bit bigger, broader, and kind of wider, and kind of diving into how do you move the herd? How do you move a population? That there's a science here, and that we can't just think that a group of people is many individuals who came together. It behaves totally differently, and there's some things you need to know about that. So those are all kind of either running or starting. So February 25th, the first 2, the CERT course actually just started up. So we've got until May 12th. If you're interested in that one. And then the next intro course, the next intro wave, which is really for people who are just putting a foot in this space and kind of want to get started, that's going to be rolling before you know it. That's March 3rd. So about the intro course, we designed it for every single therapist on the planet. If you are looking in your future and you're not going to retire in the next 10 years, there's no question the system is changing, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about today. And you, if you want to be on the right side of that change, you must begin getting prepared in this space. I mean, I've been sort of touching around it for a long time and telling people, hey, it's a good idea and I think it's important. I'm at a place now where if you're not doing this, you are going to get left behind. The train is leaving the station. Care is now being delivered this way, and there's a lot of really, really good signs and conversation saying that this is going to be how we wind up delivering value. So if you're interested in delivering value, you should put a toe in this water. The intro course was designed for you. Okay, that took a bunch of time for me, but I wanted to make sure I spent some time getting those announcements on the front end. I don't often do that, and I forget to do it at the end. So if I didn't do it right off the bat, I would have missed it. So let's talk a little bit about, kind of why I wanted to cover all of this today. And the reason why is because I think there's some cool, exciting developments. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an update of the year of hugs. From last year. For those who've been following along Monday with Pot for a while, you might remember that. I want to make sure that all of these things tie together in one of those weird, half-baked, mad sciencey kind of ways. So the first is there's an interconnection piece here, and I think that this is something that we have to sort of dive into and begin to understand. I am ecstatic to see so many people beginning to embrace the idea of data. I saw it again on Twitter this past week. I saw people kind of talking about, getting down into that quantified self stuff. And the coolest part, I think, in the conservative care community is seeing how people are now starting to explore a little bit. Almost like we've gone back and are starting to respect the idea that the how, the doing, the N of one concept, like, hey, I am a professional who is in practice. I'm getting better. I'm getting better constantly, and the way that I'm getting better constantly is by trying things, making observations, putting evidence to what I see, and then trying another thing, right? And so that idea, for a while, we sort of scoffed at the N of one. We scoffed at things that were, that's only a case study, so it's low value. It may not be as strong as a meta-analysis of RCTs or something, but the idea that our experience, as personal and individualized as that may be, is of no value. That makes me sick to my stomach. So it's nice to see that we're starting to get there, that there's this quantified self thing starting to happen in our profession where we're starting to use data. And as a believer and lover of data, to help inform decisions and maybe even drive decisions, it is refreshing to see. I think the second thing about that, though, is that we're hopefully then going to get to the next step in that conversation, which is that the quantified self is not enough. Like once you see this on yourself, you need to start exploring it with the people around you, including your clients and patients. But even more than that there is no such thing as a single unit variable that is going to give us everything we need, right? It's the realization and the willingness to kind of humbly say, holy smokes, this thing is interconnected. Right? That it's not just complicated, it's complex. That there are all sorts of interconnected working parts. And so because of that, we're really doing our best to make a best guess. We're not, we're playing likelihoods, we're playing the odds. We are not in 100% will we ever be able to get our arms wrapped around a complex system. And so I think that's a really important thing to remember. And I've kind of shied away from talking about that because I think that gets scary really quick. Like, wait a minute, we can't control everything? What's going to happen if we can't control everything? How are we going to succeed? How are we going to function? Well, we function every day without controlling everything. We play the odds. We have this amazing ability as humans to predict, right? To read each other's thoughts in many ways, right? Like I can see on the look on your face you're about to say, or I know something is troubling you because, like those are things that's a prediction. That's us. That's our ability to essentially read minds and read situations. And that is something we do not understand completely, but there's a whole bunch of social cues around it. And that's the idea of moving populations and moving the herd. It's understanding that. It's knowing what's going on and having a really strong grasp of the variables. And so that idea, I think, is where we need to go next. And so, I'm always kind of pushing into all right, now what? Right? Like, it's awesome to hear people starting to really talk about data. And even better that we're getting away from talking about just clinical outcomes. Like, not that that's a bash, clinical outcomes are incredibly important, but that's a lagging indicator. It's an after the fact scenario. Better than an after-the-fact scenario would be a real-time indicator, an in-the-moment indicator, and better than that, of course, would be a leading indicator, something that leads to the next thing, right? So the concept of I'm looking at this variable and it's telling me something about something that happened in the past, a rear view look, backward-looking variable, like that's awesome because at least we're embracing the information. Okay, not waiting for that to be at the very end of what we do, right? Like I'm getting ready to discharge a client, so now I have to actually see if my work did anything for them. Okay, so instead of just measuring some functional scale on the way out the door, actually doing it inter-office, right? In the session itself and saying, hey, I've improved function, or I've improved some sort of thing. But then getting to that leading indicator. That we know that fitness, for example, like cardiorespiratory fitness, touches just about everything. And so if we measure in the beginning every single client that walks in the door and we know our own, like do we know our own MET level? Do we know our own VO2 max? And are we willing to say to a person, I need to bring that up? I know that like you don't think you're here for that, but I know your body will heal better at a state that is a higher on this scale. And so part of what we do here is to bring you to that next state. That's much more of a leading indicator. That's ahead of disease. Now, why does that matter, and why does kind of interconnectedness play a whole role here? Because it forces us to give up the control a little bit. And like, here's the punchline, right? Like 4 minutes left. I'm 4 minutes left. I'm here, kind of at the point where now I have to give the punchline. The punchline is, we don't have control over all of the situations we face. I'm gonna let that sink in for a second. I know that's hard to hear, right? I know that's a tough one, and I know there are people who, in our profession and in conservative care, can't buy that, like can't let that happen. But the truth is, we don't have all of the control. And so that's where we get to go to sort of how this ties in, right? So it's February. I try to let the January, fervor like end a little in my life. I try to let like the New Year's resolution thing, go out the window. And so I often talk, and I don't remember when I did it last year, about what this year is going to be for me. Last year was the year of the hug, and I would say I gave myself probably about a C- to a C on the year of the hug. I started strong. I felt okay for a while. I got a little better. If you got a hug from me, you should know that you were helping me in my development. That there is an actual development process, that we're all getting better. And so, this year, yesterday, I spent some time thinking about that. Like what would be the year for me this year? What would be the most powerful thing that I could do? Last year, just being able to sort of share that connection with other people, and the power of touch at some level, right? Like that was kind of my thinking. This year, and I encourage you to think about this as well. This is the year of humility, which is not easy for me. Right? Like when I know something and I'm strong on that thing and I feel good about it, like I'm not afraid to fight. And people know that, right? And people often know that I'm going to come at you if I believe strongly in something. But here's what I've decided. I've decided that a big part of the problems that we face as a community of professionals is that we're still very much locked into an all about us attitude. We're very much kind of deep in this, let me prove how good and important I am, instead of let me get behind your problem and solve your problem. And it takes a certain level of humility to do that. It takes a certain level of saying, hey, I'm going to like sacrifice a little bit here and get over myself so that you can win. And so that's where I'm trying to go this year. That's where I'm going to spend my time. And the reason why is because of what I said before about data and quantified self and systems. Because we know we can't control every single thing. Like at the end of the day, we know we don't have all of the controls that we need, and we never will. Like we never will. I see a lot of conversation and banter going around about if I had it my way, or if I was in the lead, you will never have everything you need to move forward. The question is, will you move forward anyway? I saw some stuff on Facebook in a group this week about who's advocating for who and whether or not you should be a member of something and all sorts of different stuff. And what I'm saying is you will never, ever have the perfect scenario to move forward. The leaders in this space will do it anyway. They will do it anyway. They will get, beat up along the way. They'll take some punches. They will know that they don't know every single thing about the data that they're looking at. They will understand that it's going to be messy and imperfect, and they will do it anyway. And they will blow past those who are standing around complaining. I'll leave it with just this simple thing. I have 26 seconds left. I was tagged on a post. Somebody sort of shared with me this post of what looked a lot like, of yesteryear, spinal cord rehabilitation, and what it really was CrossFit for adaptive athletes. It was awesome. I retweeted it, but I'm just going to stop this so it doesn't start beeping because I want to finish this statement. But that is a perfect example of humility and action. Now, people know, like, I'm not, a CrossFitter, and I know on ice we have plenty of people who are. I don't do it just because I simply, am not committed to the idea of joining a place where I have some of this equipment similarly. So that's all it is for me. It's really just the idea of I'm cheap. I'm not going to go pay somewhere where I have all the equipment available. So I'll just sort of do it myself. It's always been my mentality, okay? But as an organization, I think that I have a tremendous respect for what they've done. What they've done is they have started as a low-end disruptor, okay? They started in places where nobody wanted to be, where therapists and conservative care professionals and physicians looked down in many ways on it, looked down their nose with a lack of humility and said, well, I'm not going to do that, right? What I would tell you is that is the exact same story of General Motors and Ford looking down on Toyota until Toyota blew past them. Why? Because they brought something necessary, things like cardiorespiratory fitness, strength, mobility, to the every person, and they went wherever it was needed to do so initially. That is humility. That is looking at the whole system, the whole pool of data, the willingness to say we don't understand everything about this, but we are willing to try because we believe in where we think we're going. And we're going to get into the dirt and the muck and go in places where other people just simply are not willing to go. We're going to go in the low end, and we will slowly and steadily figure this out. And when we do, we'll have enough momentum to blow right past all of those people who look down their nose at us. Now, what's really interesting to me about that is watching that happen. Because in my opinion, that is exactly what's happening. That is exactly what's happening. All the dinosaurs in our profession and others who have stood around and said, well, I'm not lowering myself to do that, like group exercise. I'm not doing that. I have this high education. Yep, keep complaining about not getting paid. Keep complaining about, why aren't I getting 3 more visits? While other people are gladly reaching into their pocket and paying for life-altering results that you could have delivered if you were willing to lower yourself and be humble. All right, I'm way over time. But that to me is the message. If you are willing to go where no one else will go for the result you want, for the result you seek, if you're willing to do that, okay, then you are willing to blow past the rest of the competition. It doesn't happen in days. It doesn't happen in months. It happens in years. And it happens with the willingness of saying, I don't understand everything, but I'm going anyway. Like, I'm going to go anyway because it's totally worth it. All right, more than enough time this morning. I'm way over time. I didn't let the bell ring because I was still kind of, there. But here's what I want you to know. We can all succeed. Every one of us has everything we need to succeed if we are willing to strip off our shell, expose ourselves a little, connect with a group of like-minded folks who want to go up the mountain, and begin climbing the mountain. And maybe that takes education and training for you. Maybe that takes a little bit of a boost for you. Maybe that takes being arm in arm and locking shields with other people who know the journey better than you. Whatever it is, it's a willingness to lay down your armor and say, I am here, humbly committed. And I'm going to make 2019 the act of doing that in my life. If you have any interest in that, join on, get connected, be involved, reach out. As you know, we're here for you in that way. It's only Monday. It's only Monday. Lay down the armor, be willing to be humble, and then slog up that mountain. Make it count.